I'm sure you've probably seen the honour requirements before today, but if you want to look at them, you will find a link to them on the worksheet, and the worksheet is very, very similar to the honour requirements. I've just reshuffled them, and there are a couple of differences from the honour requirements. I think they are based on American nutrition. So for those who are not from the UK, things that I talk about today will be very UK based, and some things will probably be similar in your country. There might be some things that are just slightly different.
All right, and so for everybody who doesn't have a worksheet, I just want to let you know, guys, that we posted that in our chat room and also on our Facebook Live. So in case you don't have it, guys, make sure you download it. This is the link for your requirements, and also you need to know, guys, you actually can come very closely to completing it. So make sure that you have it, and we can go together to this. Thank you, Charlotte.
Right, so before we get in any further, I think it's nice to, if you want to put in the comments what your favourite foods are, because food is great for nutrition. We need food, we need to be nourished, but food also gives us a chance to socialise. God wouldn't have made food have taste if he didn't want us to enjoy it. So yeah. I want to hear what you guys like to eat.
So Charlotte, it is unbelievable. You will probably not be very happy with some of this, but it doesn't matter. Okay, so people are saying my favorite food is pizza, chicken, pasta, potatoes, a lot of chicken, pancakes, okra. Somebody is writing burgers, spaghetti, chicken again, veg noodles, mangoes. Somebody put beef, rice. Oh, this is these are all common coming from my chat room here.
My favorite food is chips. So really, all the foods that you guys mentioning, there is a way that they can all fit into a balanced diet. So I never tell anyone that they have to cut anything out completely. It's just all about moderation as well.
That's excellent. This is excellent.
I like the sounds of your foods.
Yeah, it's all different. Many people are mentioning curries. Somebody is mentioning chips, as you, Charlotte, KFC, roti. But a lot of people are mentioning burgers, and that probably has to do with the fact that we're in a lockdown, so nobody can go get a burger at the moment. So yeah, I guess that's probably the reason. Charlotte, a lot of people shared a very similar taste, I think. And somebody says, I love my mom's food. So on top of that, somebody said, I love strawberries. I think, Charlotte, everybody here has their own.
Well, I think a lot of those foods are going to come up today.
Excellent. So let's go forward then.
So the first question on your worksheet, what we're going to go over now, will help you to answer that. So the dietary guidelines in its various forms, and the UK only has one form of the dietary guideline, but I will talk you through what the old ones used to look like. So in 1994, the UK government got all its health experts together, and they created something called the balance of good health, and that is what that you can see in front of you now. So this plate, it looks a little bit old-fashioned, but you can see that it covers that we need breads and cereals, fruits and vegetables, we need some sort of protein, so they've got meat, fish and alternatives, and they've got that we need some sort of milk and dairy foods, and that there is a place there for foods containing fat and sugar. So in 2007, they thought that looked a bit old, so they wanted to update it. And that's where they came up with the Eatwell plate. So it looks a bit more modern. They've changed some of the names. So the yellow section is now bread, rice, potatoes, pasta, and other starchy foods. We've still got fruit and vegetables, meat, fish, eggs, and beans. So they added in a vegetarian alternative there. And milk and dairy foods are still there, and food and drinks high in fat and sugar was still there. So in 2016, the government thought they'd go a step further. And now today we use the Eatwell guide in the United Kingdom. So you can see it looks a bit different. Things are in cartoon. There are a few more carbohydrate options, fruit and vegetable options, and the pink section for protein foods has got beans and pulses, fish, eggs, meat, and other proteins. So they really looked at expanding the types of protein foods to include some more vegetarian options. And then in the dairy section, they had a think and they thought people can get the goodness of dairy from other things as well if they want to. So that's dairy and alternatives, looking at maybe people drink plant-based milks and yogurts like soya. Some other differences, you can see that the fruit and vegetable section is a bit bigger because we know that most people probably don't eat enough fruit and vegetables, but we do know that they are really, really good for us. And you can see that the purple section is made a lot smaller. So what they decided is that people do need some fat in their diet. So you can see oils and spreads are still there, but they took out things high in fat and sugar like crisps, cupcakes, ice cream, chocolate, and they moved that down to the side. It's because it's still on the guide, those things can be included as part of a balanced diet, but they're not in the circle anymore because we know that if we didn't have them, we would still be quite healthy. So they don't need to be included in a diet, but they can be in small amounts, so they're just outside there. So the carbohydrates were extended a bit because that's just the government trying to show that we want to be getting more of our energy from good whole grain carbohydrates and less energy from things like chocolates and crisps and biscuits. They added up in the left-hand corner a little bit of information about food labels because we can see that's what we call the traffic light system, when there are greens, reds and ambers, looking at how much fat, saturated fat, sugar and salt is in the product. Not all food labels have it, but there are a lot in the UK that choose to put it on to try and help. And up in the right-hand corner of the Eatwell guide, they've added how much fluid we should aim for a day. And that's looking at fluid that is not sugary. So that can include water. Water is probably the best fluid we have. And it can include sugar-free squash or cordial if you really don't like the taste of water. It can include milk. It can include also teas and coffees, but just to be mindful that having a lot of tea and coffee, because they have caffeine, that can actually tell your body to start getting rid of a lot of extra water through your wee. So tea and coffees can be included, but in high amounts, they can actually dehydrate you. So water is still the best fluid option on the Eatwell guide. So the next part of that question is list the number of servings from each food group. So the Eatwell guide does put some serving recommendations for some food groups, but not for all. So I'll talk you through them. So for fruit and vegetables, we know that we need 5 a day. Trying to make that a mix of fruit and vegetables. So no, not just wholly fruit, not just wholly vegetables, trying to have about 2 or 3 portions of fruit and 2 or 3 portions of vegetables a day. Carbohydrates, they don't have a set number of servings for that food group, but because carbohydrates is where we get a lot of our energy from. And if you are someone who's very sporty and does a lot of exercise, you're probably going to need more carbohydrates than somebody who's a bit less, less athletic. Dairy or dairy alternatives. So the message there is to try and choose some low fat, low sugar options. Again, they haven't set specific portion sizes, but I can tell you for your age group, you guys probably need about 3 portions of dairy or dairy alternatives a day to get plenty of calcium to keep your brains nice and healthy. The message about protein, again, they don't set portion sizes for protein, or serving sizes or frequency for protein, but it's a good idea to try and aim to have some protein at every meal because protein is great for your muscles, also helps you to keep feeling full. And if you do eat meat, they recommend that trying to have about 2 portions of fish every week. So swapping out some things like chicken and beef for some extra fish because it's a very lean, healthy protein, and trying to get some oily fish as well because it's got some good oils for your brain and your heart. That's if you do eat meat, because you can get those things from some plant foods as well. For fats, the message is to try and choose unsaturated fats, and unsaturated just means fats that come usually from plants. That's things like olive oils, rapeseed oil, sunflower oils. They're a lot healthier for your heart. And to try and have those in very small amounts. I already mentioned, so this will help for question 5b, how much water should we be drinking? Talk about 6 to 8 cups a day, which is roughly about 2 litres of fluid a day. The other message from the Eatwell guide is that high fat, high salt and high sugary foods and drinks to try and have them in small amounts and have them less often. So when it comes to portion sizes, find that your hand is a good guide. So for fruit and vegetables, see this apple fits nicely in my hand. I don't have to spread my fingers to get it fit in. It just sits nicely in my hand there. So for me, this apple is a great portion size. Sometimes you get very small bananas, sometimes you get very big bananas. I can get 2 hands around that banana. Actually, that's probably 2 portion sizes of fruit in that banana right there. For salads, you say your lettuce leaves, your tomato, cucumber, if you cut it all up and it fits roughly in 2 cupped hands, that's a portion of salad. Or if you like cooked vegetables, a portion that sits in your hand like that counts as 1 portion. For things like butter or margarine, that tip of your thumb is about a portion. It's a very small amount. And for cheese, about 2 fingers. If you really like cheese, I want to include that as a dairy food. That's what a portion of cheese looks like. And for protein foods, again, if you like lentils, legumes, chickpeas, those all count as protein foods. Sort of a cupped handful or a handful of nuts counts as protein food. A couple of eggs will sit in there. That counts as 1 protein food. Or if you like to choose meat as your protein food, trying to choose some lean meats where the fat's been stripped off. And you can see that my palm here, this bit of my palm, that would be a good portion of meat or chicken if you're having that as your protein food. And it'd be the depth of your palm as well. If you like fish, say that would be a good portion of fish. So why is it important to eat a balanced diet? For many reasons. We've gone over some of them, but we know that our bodies need vitamins and minerals, so I'll explain that a little bit more, but we need those to keep our bodies working well. And we get those from a variety of foods. Foods give us energy, they keep our bones strong, and eating the right sorts of foods can also help prevent some diseases, which we'll go over later. And having a balanced diet can help us to keep a healthy body weight as well. So today we're going to be focusing on vegetarian diets, but there are plenty of other diets. Some people choose to be omnivorous, so they will eat plant-based foods and some meat-based foods. Some people call themselves pescatarians, so they will eat plant-based foods and fish. And some people call themselves flexitarians, so they might have mostly a vegetarian diet and sometimes have a little bit of meat or fish. We know that eating as many plants as possible and following a vegetarian diet can have many health benefits. But if you do eat meat, you can still have some of those health benefits by making sure you do include lots of vegetables alongside your meat and choosing meats that don't have excess salt and fat mixed in. And that can also be a very healthy diet as well. So, different types of vegetarian diets, just because some people, you might hear them talking about these different names and wondering what the difference is. So all vegetarians will avoid meat, and that could be meat as fish, chicken, red meat. They will include in their diet any sort of plant foods. They might not eat all of them, but that is what would be included in a vegetarian diet. So things like your grains, like your breads, your cereals, nuts, and any of your fruit and vegetables as well. So a lacto-ovo vegetarian, what does that mean? So lacto means milk, ovo means egg. So all that means is that this type of vegetarian, they will eat all the foods on the left-hand side. They could include those, plus they might choose to eat some dairy foods and egg as well. Lacto-vegetarian, again, lacto for milk, means they could eat anything from the left-hand side of the screen, plus they could eat some dairy products if they wanted to. That's what they would include in their diet, and they would exclude egg. An ovo-vegetarian, ovo for egg, means again, everything on the left they could choose from, and they choose to have eggs, but they choose to not have dairy products. And a vegan vegetarian, we'll only choose foods from the left-hand side of the screen. Anything plant-based or anything that's been made from plants, like sometimes your veggie or soya burgers as well, that sort of thing would be included in there as well. They don't eat any meat, any eggs, any dairy, or any other animal products. So those are your food groups. Those are your different types of vegetarian diets. We're going to look at nutrients now that we get from foods. You can see that I've got a picture of a food rainbow. So sometimes you might hear people talk about eating the rainbow, and that's a really good way to ensure you're getting plenty of nutrients, because often nutrients are linked to colours in food. Not always, but often. So we've talked a bit about some of our big nutrients. We call those macronutrients, and that can include carbohydrates, proteins and fats, and we need those in larger amounts. That's why we call them macronutrients. When I talk about larger amounts, I'm talking about grams. I mean, our basic jobs, they do plenty of different things, but basic jobs for these big nutrients is they give us energy, particularly carbs and fats. We can get a bit of energy from protein, but our body prefers that to build muscle, repair tissue, and do some other things. And then we have our micronutrients, and this is what we're going to talk a bit more about now. So we need those in very small quantities in the diet. So it's talking about microgram size, but we do need them. So that includes vitamins and minerals, and these are tiny compounds or elements that support chemical reactions, and some of them help to build structures in the body. Does anybody know what structure, you can write in the comments, what structure calcium might help to build?
Hey, Charlotte. Just as we're getting questions as well.
Oh yeah, great.
We would love to know if it's possible. Is it okay? Is it okay to not eat dairy products? In other words, they would like to go off that totally.
So is that off dairy products?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, no, definitely. In a few slides' time, we're going to go over where you can get calcium from in other sources. So dairy is put onto the Eatwell guide because it is a good source of calcium, a great way to get calcium. It also gives us some protein, and there's a little bit of fat in there. We can get fat from plenty of other things in our diet. We can get protein from the protein section. So sometimes people who are vegetarian might use cheese or yogurt as their protein source. But if you don't like dairy, if you're including things like nuts, lentils, beans, pulses, that can be your protein. So the only other thing left, if you don't want to eat dairy, is to find where you can get some calcium. I'll show you that in a couple of slides.
Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you so much.
I guess that sort of answers that question I asked. What mineral can help create a structure, and calcium helps to build bones. It helps to build bone structure. So the next few slides will help you with question 3. We're going to look at a few micronutrients, some vitamins and minerals, and I'll give you some examples of what they help with in the body and where we can find them. So our first vitamin is vitamin C, and that's a really important vitamin. It does plenty of things in the body. It helps us to absorb iron. So some micronutrients help us to absorb other micronutrients, and this is an example. Vitamin C helps us to absorb the iron in our diet. We need it to help with a few different reactions in the body. You may have heard that vitamin C is good for helping fight off colds. It helps to build your immune system. And vitamin C prevents something that we call scurvy, which is a disease we don't see so much of anymore. It was a disease 100 years ago, 200 years ago, that they used to see a lot of when people didn't eat enough fruit and vegetables, and could cause the skin to bleed, cause gum disease. It's quite a nasty disease, but it's very easily solved by just getting enough vitamin C. And some great food sources, you can see in that picture a lot of citrus fruits, so things like oranges, lemons, limes, and some other examples of mango, strawberries, even things like a red sweet pepper, grapefruit, kiwi, broccoli, sweet potato. So generally, it follows the rule that if it's a bright yellow, orange, or even a red colour, that food probably has vitamin C in it. Broccoli breaks the rule, just happens to have vitamin C. And sweet potato, not a fruit, but because that sweet potato is quite an orange colour, there'll be some vitamin C in there as well. And the other thing we just got mentioned on the slide, it's a water-soluble vitamin. So some vitamins are stored in our fat and some are stored in water. So we need to make sure the water-soluble ones we're getting plenty of every day, because our body loses water through the day, so we also use and lose vitamins.
Charlotte, somebody's asking the question, obviously a fan of broccoli. He's asking, how can my mother replace broccoli in my diet, and with what?
It depends what you're trying to achieve. So if you hate broccoli but you want to make sure you're still getting plenty of vitamin C, any of those other fruits and vegetables on that list is a good alternative to broccoli. If you hate broccoli and want to get rid of it just because you hate it, you could think of some other vegetables to replace it with. Some other green leafy vegetables are good replacements for broccoli.
Charlotte, thank you.
Here we have vitamin A. So this is another vitamin that sort of follows that color rule. So anything the bright yellow color. So you may have heard that carrots have a good source of vitamin A. There's also things, again, sweet potato, pumpkin, apricots, mango, papaya, and then kale and spinach. Again, the green leafy vegetables always break the rule because they're just so full of different micronutrients. But we need vitamin A because it helps with vision. It's great for bone health as well, reproduction health. Another one that's good for the immune system, and it keeps the cells in your airways nice and healthy. And this is a vitamin that can store in your fat. So I'll explain a little bit later why we need to just be mindful of fat soluble and water soluble. And then we have vitamin B1. So there's a question later on your worksheet that asks what is another name for vitamin B1. So this is going to help to answer that. So another name that commonly goes by, and you'll see this on a lot of food packaging like breakfast cereals, is we also call it thiamine. And we need vitamin B1 because it helps with carbohydrate metabolism, and that just means helps to break down and use carbs for energy, helps to keep nerves healthy and your heart healthy. And this one, again, dissolves in water, so we need to make sure we're getting enough vitamin B1 every day. And we can find it in soya milk, sunflower seeds, pulses and legumes like beans and lentils, and your whole grain carbohydrates. Or sometimes breakfast cereals are fortified, which just means they've added back in some extra vitamins for you. And vitamin B2, again, another one that's a bit further down the questions on your worksheet. This one has another name, and commonly it's called riboflavin. And it also helps to break down and use carbohydrates for energy. It also dissolves in water in our body, and we can find vitamin B2. You can see some picture examples, and there's some written out as well, again, in milk, yogurt, mushrooms, spinach. Those green leafy vegetables seem to have almost everything, and fortified breakfast cereals, and eggs as well have some vitamin B2. So those are some of the vitamins. I'm now going to look at some of the minerals, and iron is a very important mineral for our body. We need iron because it helps red cells move oxygen around our body. It helps cells produce energy, and we need it to keep our brain and our immune system working properly as well. So a very common source of iron is red meat or other meats. And if you do eat meat, again, choosing some meats that have less fat on them, are cooked with less fat is a good way as well. And trying to have them processed less. So a lot of processed meats will have extra fat and salt, sometimes even sugar added into them, and extra chemicals to process them. For a vegetarian diet, or even if you're not vegetarian, these are some other good plant sources of iron as well to include in your diet. Things like kidney beans, spinach, green beans, broccoli, potato, dried fruits, and tofu are some other good sources of iron. Calcium. So this is we were talking about calcium a little bit earlier. We need calcium for many things, but mostly, so 90%, 99% of the calcium in our body is used for our bones and our teeth and keeping them nice and strong. But we do also need it for a couple of other things. So it helps our blood to clot. So if you've cut yourself and your hand is bleeding, it starts to stop bleeding and clot, that calcium helps with that. When you're moving your muscles and contracting them, calcium helps with that as well. And it helps with nerves talking to each other too. So I've got vitamin D there. Vitamin D helps us to absorb calcium. So that's another one we need to make sure that we're getting. Does anybody know where we can get vitamin D from?
Let's ask people in the chat rooms and also on our Facebook comment section. So if anybody would like to share where you can get vitamin D, please do it now. So let's see. All right. So everybody is on the same page. Somebody, okay. Everybody says, oh, you can get it from the sun. Some extremely funny Pathfinder said you can get it from donuts. Also, yeah, everybody is saying it's a sunlight at the moment.
It is the sunlight, yeah. When the sun hits your skin, it reacts, and then it changes into the type of vitamin D that our bodies need, and that's how we get vitamin D. You can get it from other sources. So if you eat fish with tiny little bones, that can also help you to get some vitamin D and calcium. But it is very tricky to get vitamin D in the diet. So if you're very low in vitamin D and you know that you're not getting enough sun, it might be worth taking or talking to your doctor about getting a supplement for that to help your calcium be absorbed and keep your bones strong. So we can get calcium from milk and yogurt. But also if you drink things like soy milk, oat milk, rice milk, a lot of these have now been fortified with calcium. So if you're somebody mentioned earlier they may want to avoid dairy, and there's many different reasons why someone may want to or need to avoid dairy. So you could look at things like a soy milk or soy yogurt, or there's plenty of other alternatives. The shops are pretty good these days. If you, just to be mindful, if you're picking something that is organic, like an organic soy milk, those ones won't always be fortified with extra calcium. So just your standard plant milks should be fortified with calcium. But also, again, broccoli, green beans, almonds, tofu, some cereals, and yep, spinach is there again. Those also have calcium. So we talked a little bit about water earlier. Why is it important to drink plenty of water every day? Let's go through. Well, actually, in the chats, does anybody have any idea how much of our body is made up of water?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Let's see what people are saying. Somebody says 75%, 40%, 70%, 69%, 90%. Well, it's obviously everybody thinks above 50 for sure.
It's a lot, yeah. So everyone's pretty spot on there. So depending on your gender, your body type, your age, it will be a little bit different for everybody, but anywhere between 50 to 70%, most people's bodies are made up with water. So that's why we need to make sure we're getting plenty of water every day. So we need water.
Before we go to the water, we did get a question in which says, is there anything negative about the calcium or other vitamins? I'm not sure if you want to, or probably maybe too much of it, or is there anything negative?
No, that's a very good question. So we want to make sure we don't have too little, but for some vitamins and minerals we do need to make sure that we don't have too much. So there's a couple of slides a bit later on that will go over that, and we'll highlight some of the ones we just have to be careful with.
All right, so Charlotte, what is the percentage of the water in the body?
So anywhere between 50 to 70%. There's no exact amount, it's just a little bit different for everybody. So I think everybody's comments were pretty spot on there.
Excellent.
So we need water to do some chemical processes in our body. We need water to keep our blood volume high and keep it circulating. So body temperature regulation, all that means, if your body is quite hot, you start to sweat. That is a normal body reaction to try and cool you down. If you're dehydrated, if you don't have enough water in your body, it's difficult for that process to work properly. We've got a picture of kidneys there, and kidneys are sort of like the filter system in your body, and they filter out all the waste products into your urine when you go to the toilet, and we need water to help flush your blood, flush your kidneys, keep them nice and healthy, and take away those waste products. We, around our joints, like our elbows and knees, we have lubricant, a bit like WD-40 in there that keeps those moving and not creaking, and those joints, those lubricants are partially made up of water. We need water for digestion as well. So saliva, that starts to break down some of your food the moment you put it in your mouth, and we need water to make up saliva. There's something called bile as well that's in your gut, and that helps to break down fats, and water helps to make bile. And for when ladies are pregnant, there's a big sack of water, amniotic fluid around the baby that protects the baby, and we need water to keep that baby nice and protected. So we're going to go over some diseases. This will help with question 6. Some common diseases that can be controlled by diet or helped with by diet. So we've got cardiovascular disease, or sometimes it's called heart disease. And that's heart disease is when there is a buildup or blocking in your blood vessels, usually from something called cholesterol, which is a type of fat in your body, in your blood. You can see that diagram there. We've got a blood vessel. That's the blood's moving through just fine, and then you can start to see that something is building up on the walls of your blood vessel, and that space for that blood to move is getting smaller and smaller. And that build up on the walls of the blood vessel is cholesterol. And when that shuts completely, or sometimes that little bit of that cholesterol can break off and get stuck elsewhere, that can lead to a heart attack or a stroke. So there are plenty of things that we can do with our diet though that can help prevent it or to help reduce that cholesterol. So cutting back on fat and sugar can help with your weight. Cutting back on animal fat. So again, if you do eat meat, taking that white layer of fat off, or taking the skin off your chicken, that gets rid of a lot of animal fat that we call saturated fat, and that's what builds up cholesterol in the arteries. But also things like butters as well, it's got cutting back on that. Swapping to some plant fats, those are called unsaturated, and they help to reduce that cholesterol, it's like a bit like a hair conditioner and smooths that back down. And that's things like your olive oil, rapeseed oil, avocado has got some good fats in there as well. And increasing your fruit, vegetables, and whole grain, getting plenty of fiber helps as well. So hypertension, that's when the blood pressure in your arteries is too high. And that can be from, the big one is too much salt. People who drink a lot of alcohol can have high blood pressure as well. Being overweight and not getting enough exercise can also contribute to high blood pressure. And when your blood pressure is too high, again, that can also, you've got risk of heart attack, stroke, problems with your kidneys and your eyes, because they're very delicate, and even something called vascular dementia as you get older. So things that can help, definitely cutting back on salt, reducing fat and sugar, because that will help you to keep a healthy weight, reducing animal fats, and increasing fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. This is something called anemia, which is another word for iron deficiency. So you can have iron deficiency anemia is one type of anemia. And what that is when we don't have enough enough iron in the diet, or it's not being absorbed properly. So sometimes people can be eating lots of food with iron, but they might have a medical condition where it doesn't get absorbed properly. And when you don't have enough iron in your blood, you can get quite tired, get quite short of breath. Sometimes it starts to feel a bit funny. So making sure that you're choosing lots of iron-rich foods and that you're eating something with some vitamin C with it as well. So maybe if you're having a nice meal with some baked beans on toast, or some spinach, or maybe some chicken, those iron-rich foods, and then you have a little orange afterwards, that can help to absorb that iron. So the next one is osteoporosis. Osteoporosis is when you have low bone density, your bones become weak and they can easily break. And we often see this can happen later in life. So it's not always caused by diet, There's definitely things like medications and hormones as you get older that can contribute to osteoporosis. But what we can do when we're young, the best advice is to make sure you get plenty of calcium and vitamin D when you're young to try and prevent this from happening. You can see down in the bottom corner, we have a healthy bone compared to a bone with osteoporosis. There's lots of holes, quite a weak bone. And then lastly, another condition that is linked to diet, not always. Let me just start off by saying that there is a lot of family links and ethnic links as well, genetic links to or ethnic backgrounds can contribute to type 2 diabetes as well. But for most people, particularly in the UK, type 2 diabetes is linked to diet. So type 2 diabetes is when the body is not able to manage the amount of sugar in the blood, and sometimes it can get too high. So we all have sugar in our blood. Usually the body's very good at controlling it. So usually it's caused by being overweight. So sometimes people say, oh, it's just from eating sugar. Well, it's from eating anything in excess that can cause you to gain weight. So sometimes too much sugar can cause you to put on weight. As you get older, sometimes it's too much fat, and sometimes it's too much of other things as well. So some dietary changes that can help, help reduce or prevent diabetes is to reduce your fat and sugar intake again, increase how much fruit, vegetables and whole grains you're having as well. And I know that my friend Naomi, she did a great talk on the physical fitness on a couple of weeks ago, and exercise is very, very important for managing conditions or preventing conditions like type 2 diabetes. So if you haven't given that one a watch, please do.
Charlotte, just to let you know, we have probably about maybe another 10 minutes for the presentation. Okay. So for you to just have an idea, because I know you have some other things you like to show.
Great. Okay. We should be all right. So what is the difference between whole wheat flour and white flour, and which one has the higher nutritive value? So which one is a bit better for you? So you can see there on the left of the screen, we have a whole grain. So that means it's got all three parts to the grain. So it's got the bran, and that's where the fiber and some of the vitamins are. We've got the middle bit, called the endosperm, which has got some carbs and proteins, and the germ is the little bit in the middle, and that's where it's got some healthy fats and some other vitamins and minerals. And a white grain or white flour is when they've taken only that endosperm. So you're missing out on all the goodness from the bran and the germ. So really the whole grain flour, a whole meal, that one has more nutrition. So what does dietary reference value or reference intake mean? So I know that the US uses a different term for that. So I'll talk you through these ones. In the UK, reference intake is the amount that is enough to ensure the needs of most of the population are met. And you can see those on the back of some food labels there. It's a rough idea of how much the average adult needs to eat. And that looks at energy, fat, saturated fat, carbs, sugar, protein and salt. And dietary reference values are a little bit more in depth. So you can answer either one of these on your worksheet, but these ones are the estimates of nutritional requirements, but it also takes into account your age, your activity levels, and your gender as well. So they're a little bit more specific. Somebody asked earlier, why is it important not to eat too much of some vitamins and minerals? Well, because large amounts can be toxic to the body. Now, it's very difficult to have too much vitamins and minerals from the food we eat. So usually this toxicity happens if you're having lots and lots of multivitamins or some sort of vitamin or mineral supplement. So usually it's hard to do with just the food you eat. I won't go into too much detail, but you can see that things like if you have too much vitamin A can cause damage to your nerves and your bones. Vitamin D, we said, is good for the bones, but again, too much can actually weaken the bone. Sometimes too much vitamin C can cause diarrhea. Iron and zinc are ones that we need to be careful with as well, because too much iron can upset the tummy. It can cause constipation, and in huge amounts, sometimes people can go into a coma. And zinc.
Sorry. Somebody asked the question about, you finished this too, that's no problem at all. But then somebody asked the question, what if you can't eat wheat? Something to think about.
Yeah, oh, so what if you can't eat wheat? So that's just looking at where else can you get your carbohydrate from. So you know that potatoes are a good source of carbohydrate, and if you leave the skins on, then they're getting plenty of fiber as well. If you can't eat wheat, there are other sorts of grains like rice is a little bit easier in some people's tummies if you have trouble eating wheat, and oats are a good one as well. So they are a little bit separate from wheat, so some people digest them a bit easier. All right, so you have some space on your worksheet that you can try later to plan a 2-day menu basing off a lacto-ovo vegetarian diet. I'm trying to include all the food groups like the Eatwell guide does. So it looks a bit like that on your sheet. And here's one that you can look at later. So the 5 things that I think about get people to think about when planning what they're going to eat is, where is your carbohydrate at each meal? Can you make it whole grain? 2, where is your protein coming from? 3, where are your vegetables in that meal? And 4, where can you fit in fruit and dairy? Can they be snacks or can they be mixed into the meal somehow? And 5, what sort of fluids are you going to drink? So you can see there, day 1, we've got a protein in our omelette, and we've got some vegetables mixed in, we've got some wholemeal toast, and somebody had a snack. They had a couple of satsumas, they got their fruit, and they had a salad sandwich for lunch with some sort of meat alternative slice, a soy slice. They had some yogurt and a piece of fruit alongside. They had a couple of rice cakes and some veggie sticks. And for dinner, they had a bean and veggie burrito with a little bit of cheese. And for dinner, they had a couple of rich tea biscuits and a glass of milk. So that day, they got plenty of calcium, plenty of protein, they had plenty of carbohydrates for energy, and they got their 5 a day, fruit and veg. So how much time have we got left, Diane?
Oh, you have about 10 minutes. Charlotte, somebody's asking, what would happen to you if you're eating too much sugar to your body?
So too much sugar. So sugar is, our body can use sugar for energy because sugar is a type of carbohydrate. It's not the best type of carbohydrate. So if you're eating a little bit of sugar, your body will probably use that up if you're burning a lot of energy in the day. When your body gets too much energy, more than it needs, it will store it. It starts to store it as fat. It's very clever at doing that. So if you eat too much of anything that has energy, so fats and carbs, even protein, if you eat too much, it will start to store as energy, to store as fat, and sugar comes into that as well. So if you're eating far more sugar than you need, your body sometimes will store that as fat. Probably also not so great for your teeth.
Thank you, Charlotte.
All right, so I'm just going to quickly show you. There's a recipe for curry as well. Curry is, I'm definitely no expert in Indian cuisine, but it's a very basic curry recipe, and it's a great way to sneak in extra vegetables because sometimes you can't taste them. The lentils get really soft and you can't taste them either if you're not a big fan of lentils. And the curry and the flavors in it are a great way to cover up the flavors of vegetables if you don't like them. So now. But right now I'm going to show you overnight oats. This is a really good breakfast that covers your carbohydrate. It's got protein in there as well, lots of fiber. It will definitely keep you feeling very full across the morning, and it's got some calcium as well. So all it is, about half a cup of oats. Those are good whole grain oats, really good for digestion, really good for your bowels as well. And we're going to mix in some milk. Got about 150 mils of milk. And then we're just going to add some plain yogurt. So there's not extra sugar, and sometimes they add lots of extra sugar when you get a flavored yogurt. This one's nice and plain. So you're getting a little bit of protein in here, and you're getting some good calcium as well. So I'm just going to put a couple of tablespoons. This helps to make your oats a bit thicker. This is good, if you don't like porridge, this is a good alternative. It doesn't get quite as gluggy as porridge, and you can add a lot of flavor to it. So I'm just going to mix that through. Cool. Now if you add any sort of fruit, some people grate apple and that tastes nice, or some people chop up bananas and mix that through. I am a big fan of berries. So and sometimes people worry about frozen foods like frozen vegetables, frozen fruit. They don't lose nutrition. Actually, sometimes they keep it very, very well, or even better than the fruit in the store, because they are picked and straight away they're frozen. When you freeze something, it keeps all those nutrients in a bit longer. They're also a bit cheaper sometimes, the frozen stuff. Mix that through. And because berries are very sweet, I don't need to add anything like sugar to get that tastier. Cool. So what you can do is, if you really want to eat this pretty quickly, because it makes a good snack as well, I say leave it in the fridge for about 30 minutes. I think it tastes even better if you leave it overnight. So you do this at night, and in the morning it's nice and ready to go. I've got some nuts, chopped up some almonds, and sprinkle those in. That's some good fibre and some good protein as well. Both help you to feel a bit fuller for longer. So sometimes, you know, sometimes we like to eat Rice Krispies or cornflakes for breakfast, and that's okay every now and then. But they don't have a lot of fibre, they don't have a lot of protein, and sometimes you feel very hungry later on. So this sort of breakfast keeps you feeling fuller a lot longer. And I've got some seeds here as well. Things like pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds. They've got a lot of vitamins and minerals. So sunflower seeds have got a lot of zinc as well, which is a good one. You can add those the next morning. I like to add them in now because then they get a bit soft and they're a bit less crunchy. And they take on the taste of the berries overnight. I'll show you one that I made yesterday. It's a lot less sloppy. There we go. Now it's a bit like a pudding, like a breakfast pudding. And plenty of nutrition, plenty of vitamin C, plenty of fibre. You've got some good healthy fats in those seeds and nuts, so that's really good for keeping your heart healthy. And good protein as well. Oh, and calcium, because we've added some milk and yogurt as well. So that one I used almond milk, because that's all I had. But I had some calcium as well, and the yogurt as well definitely has some calcium. That's just regular cow's milk.
Yeah, Charlotte, somebody's asking a question. What is the difference between the honey and the sugar?
That's a really good question. So honey is very tasty, and I would never tell anybody not to have honey. The only thing is that chemically, it is very similar to sugar. So sugar is made up of a molecule called glucose and fructose, and honey is also made up of glucose and fructose. So they break down in our body into the same sort of thing. So honey, I think honey, if you're going to put one on your breakfast cereal, honey's probably better because it has such a strong flavour that we tend to put a little bit less on our plate. And it is a good way to, a little bit goes a long way. I get a lot of taste from just a teaspoon of honey, whereas sugar, sometimes it's very easy to keep pouring and pouring before you start to taste any difference. So that doesn't mean you can't have honey. It just means that, just to keep in mind, it is very similar to sugar. It's just a more natural form of sugar. So sugar we get by going out and cutting down cane, and we suck that sugar out. Honey, the bees just do all the work for us.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Great. Does anybody have any other questions?
That is for now that I had on my screen. So let's just see when it comes to Zoom, any questions there, guys, you can now post it and we will ask Charlotte. Also, we have about maybe 5 minutes more, just to let you know. Yeah. So another question is, when it comes to fruit, can you eat too much fruit?
Yeah, so that's why it's a good, when I say have you 5 a day, try not make them all fruit. Fruit is very healthy and it's so much better for you than other snacks like chocolates and crisps. But Sometimes we don't need all that energy from fruit. If you're doing lots of activity and you're very active in the day, you might need lots of fruit to give you lots of energy. But if you're sort of an average person who does an average amount of activity, about 2 portions of fruit is probably fine for you. So sometimes I see people make some smoothies, and smoothies are a really good way to get in fruit and vegetables. But it's very easy in a smoothie to put in an apple and blend that up, put a banana and blend that up, and put some berries and blend that up, and then put in another banana. And before you know it, smoothie that was this much fruit, lots and lots of fruit, blends down into 1 cup. So you've got lots and lots of portions of fruit where you probably would have only sat down and eaten 2. So if you're getting a lot of extra natural energy from fruit and your body doesn't use it all up, you can start to have more than you need.
And the same thing would be probably able to set for the vegetables as well. Is that right?
So vegetables, so a good trick I use with people is, if you really want to make a smoothie, is to take out some of the extra fruit and replace it with something like a chopped up carrot or spinach, because when you blend it up, they just taste like the fruit. So vegetables, it's really hard to eat too much of. If anything, I would tell people to eat more, because they've got very similar vitamins and minerals to fruit, but they don't come with energy. So it's very difficult to put on too much weight if you're eating lots and lots of vegetables.
Somebody's asking, is it a syrup bad? Probably talking about maple syrup.
Yeah, so like maple syrup, golden syrup. So maple syrup, it's very sort of similar principle to honey. So instead of going and cutting down cane sugar to get sugar, people will get the syrup from maple trees. So we've just taken the sugar, sucked it out of a tree and put it on our pancakes. Again, doesn't mean that we can't ever have maple syrup. We just need to be careful about how much we have, because it still is very similar to sugar.
Excellent, excellent. Charlotte, because of time, we are almost there. Is there last few slides you would like to share, or?
Well, I've just got a couple of last slides for that curry, if anybody wants to grab the recipe. But I think the slides will go up later, won't they? So people can copy the recipe from there if they want.
Also, Naomi Burgess is asking, is it possible that we can see Riley again? Or Riley's like
of course.
He's like, leave me alone, people. I want to. Here comes Riley.
He's a big fan of the computer. It took me twice as long to write this PowerPoint because he thought he could help, and he could not. He could not help. Oh, well, Dad, Matt's got a treat. Oh yeah.
I feel hungry right now.
Oh, for the fans.
Very good, very good. Many more questions are coming in about vitamin D, vitamin D3, all of that. It might not even be enough time for us to answer all of that, but if you have some advice, absolutely, Charlotte.
Oh, about so there are different types of vitamin D. The different types escape me at the moment. So the ones that we get from food are slightly different from the ones we get from the sun, and the ones that we get from supplements are slightly different as well. So the sun is the best source of vitamin D because it reacts with our skin and turns into the perfect one, the easiest one to absorb. So ones from food and supplements, often you need a little bit more of them, and that's why they come in a little bit stronger doses, because they are a different type. A good resource is on the NHS website. You can look up vitamin D and it will show you the others and the different specific names for you.
That's okay. Thank you, Charlotte, for that. Thank you so much. Well, it is now 3 o'clock. Charlotte, would you like to conclude the presentation?
Yeah, let's end it there.
Okay.